Wouldn't it be neat if we had a hotline to God? We could pick up our cell phone and speed dial and say, "Hey, God, this is Mike from Earth," and hear his voice back to us audibly. But it doesn't work that way, does it? The Bible does tell us, though, that God is there, that He's listening, and He's involved in our everyday lives. Hebrews 11:1 says also that by having faith like this, that we just trust Him, we can be certain of what we don't see and what we can't hear. I'm a hiker. I love to be out in the fall and the spring and walking through the woods. And one particular spring, as I was walking, there was a sound that caught my ear. Maybe I've heard it before, but not this distinct. I stopped and paused and listened carefully. And it was a sound that I will describe as maybe a cat's meow without the ow on the back. I later learned that this is called bleating, B-L-E-A-T, and it's made by a newly born fawn, a deer, laying in the thickets, maybe hidden away from predators and calling for its mother. Psalm 5:3, this is what it reminded me of. In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice in the morning. I lay my request before you and wait expectantly. The question is, does God hear everyone who cries out to Him? Psalm 68:18-9 unfortunately says that if I cherished sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. But God has surely listened and heard my prayer. Now we have a problem, don't we? Because each and every one of us, if we look into our own heart, we're going to find something there that is flawed. We're not perfect. Isn't it nice to know then that God hears us and calls us even when we don't have perfect hearts? We humans, we struggle with two dilemmas. We want to know that God hears us, but the second one, which is not of great concern for a lot of people, we want to know that we're hearing from God too. Crying out to God like that fawn did for its mother may be an act of desperation. It's an expression of faith in regard to us, to God, and we trust Him, His goodness and His power to act on our behalf. It's hard for us to admit that we can't solve every problem. It's hard for us to admit that we need help from God. Your cry to God is an acknowledgement that His ability can do what no one else can do. I'm reminded of the sea the storm on the Sea of Galilee. You remember that in the Bible? The disciples were very fearful. They were going to drown, that they were going to perish in this great storm that was on the sea. They woke up Jesus, and Jesus immediately calmed the storm. So He showed that He has the power and the strength to take care of all things. Crying out to God is an admission for our need for God. Psalm 18:6 reads, "In my distress I called to the Lord. I cried to my God for help. From His temple He heard my voice. My cry came before Him into His ears." See, it's a fact. God hears us. But do we hear Him? In John chapter 10, Jesus spoke about the sheep and the shepherds, or the shepherd, and how the sheep follow Him. He says, the sheep listen and follow their shepherd's voice. That's very simple, isn't it? It does not say, Jesus is not saying they should and they can listen and hear and follow. He says they do. The followers of Jesus, in fact, hear God's voice and they follow Him. I think the reason that we don't hear God is that our lives are so darn busy and we just are not still. We don't take time to listen to God. We drowned Him out. Psalm 46:10 says that, "Be still and know that I am God." It's stillness, not busyness, that tunes our spiritual hearts to God. The Lord appeared to Elijah in the Old Testament in 1 Kings chapter 19. I want to read this passage to you. It goes like this. The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Then a great powerful wind tore the mountains apart and scattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. Then Elijah heard it. He pulled his cloak over his head, his face, and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" See, there it is. It could be that the reason we don't hear God is that, well, we just so often drowned him out through the turmoil of our busy daily lives. God is in the stillness, in the quietness of your soul. This may be a good time to just take a moment and be still and listen to God. You know, there's another passage that says, all things work to good for those who are called according to his purpose. Hey, if you're a believer, you can trust God's in control. So just take a few minutes, listen to him, and spend a little bit of time with him. God bless. We'll see you later.